Hello everyone, welcome back to my wine barrel. In the last video, we talked about how I got from Milan to Turin to Alba here. And got in last night, kind of this series of unfortunate events to get here. Today was my first full day in the city of Alba. Alba is an amazing city. It's a medieval city. There's Roman ruins everywhere. It's phenomenal. Highly recommend. Amongst the history, but also, of course, the wine, the food. I mean, you can't go a block without seeing a Michelin star in this town. It's really exceptional. After a late and eventful night last night, went to bed in the barrel, woke up right here, and I set off for town. I had been in Alba the night before, but only in the dark. I hadn't seen it in the light. So I jump in my car. It's about a 7-minute drive to Alba from where I'm staying. And I kind of, struggle to find parking a little bit. Parking here is really confusing. Driving here is really confusing too. But also parking. So there's like all these different parking signs, and some places you can park all day for free. Some places you can park as long as you want to pay. Some places you have to pay and you can only park for an hour, a half an hour, 2 hours. Some places you can only park for 15 minutes, but you don't have to pay. It's very confusing, and they have all these different colored lines and signs and lots of Google Translate shout out. Anyways, so I head towards the city, and or the town square center, the medieval part of town. And I know that I don't want to drive there again because I'm pretty sure I broke many laws doing it last night. And so I kind of, as you come into town, there are like these newer buildings before you get to the wall that goes around the old part of town. And so I'm in the newer part, and I park in the spot where you can park all day, but you have to pay for your parking. No problem. Park there, go to the parking meter. There's 1 meter, and you basically put in enough money for how long you want to stay. But it's so confusing. You put the money in, and then you push print, and it prints a ticket. But there's like times where you don't have to pay and times you do have to pay. And so I end up buying like 6 parking tickets, and I just took the 3 that I thought were correct, and I placed them on my dash, which is what you're supposed to do. Usually if you're from Italy or you speak Italian, you know that you only have to put 1 there, but I put 3 there for good measure. I already paid for them, may as well have the insurance. So put my assortment of parking tickets on my dash, lock up my car. Just down the street, there's a bar. And so I go and I have a cappuccino, and I have a pastry, and I don't know what it was. I know it was delicious, and I know it doesn't have nuts in it because I typed in my phone and asked the guy. I'm allergic to nuts. I did a little action too. And I just kind of sat and took in the sights. Again, we're not in like the really cool part of town, but it's still beautiful. There's people walking, there's dogs, really nice. And so I kind of planned my attack for the day, how to get the most experience out of Alba, day 1. And so I take off on foot after my planning mission, and it's probably a 7-minute walk to the heart of the city. And as you're walking, I mean, it's just gorgeous. The first thing that greets you is this giant sculpture that the inventor of Ferrero Rocher, the little chocolate company based in Alba, that was a gift that he gave to the city, is this big, huge sculpture. So cool, and like, it's just breathtaking. All the old infrastructure. We're talking medieval infrastructure, right? And the way that this city is, since it's still like the same buildings like from way back in the day, and so it's the same street plan. So once you're in the center of the city, it's just like a labyrinth. There's roads and roads and roads and roads and roads, and there's kind of one main strip, and it's a fun mix of like clothes stores, wine shops, wine bars, restaurants, lunch restaurants, dinner restaurants, all sorts of stuff, right? But you kind of get lost in this city, and eventually you come out onto a square, and there's a big church, and you go do a tour of the church and come back out. And I was just having a blast. And so I was kind of popping into shops, and I checked out this one little wine shop and met this guy, very nice man. We had a kind of broken but brief conversation. and talked to him and got some advice on which wine shops I should go check out, and really lovely. And so then I set off and I went and had an espresso and a little sandwich panino, doing the Italian things, really loving it. And just taking in the sights, touring a cathedral. If you've ever been the only person in a gigantic neo-Gothic cathedral, it's an amazing spiritual experience. And I did that a few times in the small town of Alba. And so I'm having a great time and, meeting a few people. There were people that spoke English. I'd hear them, and not a ton, but whenever I hear people speaking English, I'd always go up to them and talk to them. And so whenever I hear someone speaking English, I will go and introduce myself and talk to them. But I also think it's important that I don't only speak to people who speak English, right? You'd be surprised who does know English here. Lots of young people, some of the older people. And so it's important to try and communicate, whether that's English or very, very, very broken Italian that's probably mostly Spanish, or Google Translate. And so, like I said, I'm kind of just bebopping around this medieval city, really just enamored by everything, taking pictures of the architecture, the churches, and stopping into shops. And there are these wine shops, and they're called enotecas. And so my understanding of an enoteca is it's a retail wine shop, but it's more than that. Enotecas are also like wine libraries. They're historians. The people that work there are historians of the region and the producers. They have backdated vintages of bottles. The owners of these enotecas are friends with all the producers, and they know all the people in the region. Really, really just impressive breadth of knowledge. And it's a place where you go to buy wine, but it's also a place where you go to learn about the region. And so I ended up in 2 wine shops that were enotecas. The first one was more modern. Walked in, and in these places, it's like wine everywhere that the eye can see. And it's like all the producers. And so I walked in, and there was this American man buying 2 cases of very high-end wine, sending it home. And so I got a kick out of watching him do his thing. And I introduced myself to the guy who was working there. His name is Bruno. And we talked about Piedmont, and, and I kind of said, I like your selection. And he said, oh, have you seen the basement? And I said, no, I haven't seen the basement. And he said, just go right back there. So in the back of the store, there's a spiral staircase down into the basement. And so I go down there, and I'm greeted by these stone walls and then red brick ceiling, like arches, like beautiful architecture. And it's like these rooms, 3 rooms, and there's wine, stacked up to the ceiling, cases. There's bottles over here. There's a wine rack with wine from 1961 Conterno, 1987 Gaia, all the wines you see in books, right? And so I'm just having so much fun kind of picking through, and I go to the second room, same thing, third room, same thing. And I come back into the first room, and Bruno is down, and he's looking through the wine. And I look over his shoulder, and like behind him here, there's this fresco. And so fresco is like an old style of painting where they would paint a sort of ink onto drying plaster, and the plaster would soak in the ink, and so it's like permanent in the wall. And I'm like, hey, Bruno, what's that? And he said, oh, that's an ancient Roman artwork that we found when we were digging out this cellar. And I was like, I stopped in my place, like, this is Roman artwork, like the Romans? And he was like, yes, yeah, go take a look. So I, moving wine bottles, taking a peek at this beautiful, historic, ancient, basically painted on the wall, however long ago. And he said, look at that. And so I looked down, and there's this case with sand in it. And on the sand, there are these vessels, like jugs, clay jugs, and they were pots that they uncovered in the cellar that the Romans aged wine in and drank wine out of these cups. And so I'm like standing there, I can't believe it. Like, look at this history. And he said, go in the back room under the glass on the floor. There's an old Roman road. And so I sure enough, I go in the third room and there's a piece of glass on the ground and there's rocks under it and it's a Roman road. And I just had this moment in this basement of like being overwhelmed by the history and the culture of this region. Not only is this an ancient city, but they've been producing wine here, drinking wine here for 1,000 years. I mean, it's thousands of years almost. It's amazing. And so I talked to Bruno, so fun, and he told me another winery to check, or another enoteca to check out, and it wasn't too far away, just across the square. And so left there, went to this other enoteca, walk in, and it's much smaller, but there's just wine everywhere. And I'm greeted by this 70-something-year-old man, a little frail. He introduces himself in great English. His name is Enrico. And so I'm asking him about the shop and, you know, the history. And he starts telling me the history of Alba. And he was born in Alba, not just in Alba. He was born in the room that we were in. This used to be his family's house, and he converted it into this kind of wine consortium. Amazing. And so he tells me about his family, and they've been in Alba for hundreds and hundreds of years, and they used to be textile merchants, and just so cool. And I got up the courage. I said, Enrico, would you ever sit down and do an interview with me? I'm trying to do, you know, a little bit of journalistic work, bring people's stories home. And he said, yeah, I would do that. And I said, great, when can we meet? And he said, just come back tomorrow, anytime. And so tomorrow I'm going to go and see if Enrico wants to have a chat. And I'm hoping to just record his story, his family story in Alba, and then also more about the history of Alba. Yes, wine, but also people, place, culture. So we'll see if anything comes of that. And so then I leave there and I'm feeling great. And now it's probably like 5 p.m. or so. So I had a whole day just kind of, you know, walking around, taking pictures, talking to people, drinking a little bit of wine, drinking a lot of espresso. Amazing. And so I go to this other part that I didn't quite make it to of Alba. And one of my secondary objectives is to bring artwork back from each place. And so I kind of stumble into this tiny little shop, and there's one lady in there. She introduces herself in very broken English. Her name's Dona. And I said, oh, I'm looking to buy art. And so she's showing me these paintings in frames. And I say, try and communicate, you know, I'm not looking for a frame. I need to be able to bring it with me, like roll it up and bring it with. And so then she shows me the little postcards and like, I need something in between. And so she goes and gets this stack of paintings, some paintings, but mostly pencil drawings, Conte, and ink washes. And they're all like in a very similar style. And come to find out, these are all from this one regionally known artist named Johnny Doe. And Johnny Doe is this guy from England who kind of fell in love with Alba, and he was an artist, and he did a bunch of artwork on Alba. So all the paintings are of Alba or of the culture. And I found these 2 pieces I really loved, and I wanted to buy them, but I didn't have a way to transport them. I tried to communicate to Dona that I needed some sort of tube or something to roll up the paintings and put the paintings in, so then I could take them with me. And so I kind of get across to her that I need a tube for the paintings. And she's kind of talking about we can get a box, and I'm like, no box, I need a tube. And so she's making phone calls.
Avvolge, cioè, non arrotolare, perché è un cartoncino un po' consistente, però è proprio solo un cartoncino.
And she's kind of like, I don't know. And she says, one place is Charlie Brown. And I'm like, Charlie Brown? And she said, yes. And so I go, okay, I guess I need to go to Charlie Brown. And so I say, you know, can I come back tomorrow and buy these paintings if I find something to put them in? And she says, yes, be here until 5:30. Great. So I venture off, type in my phone, Charlie Brown. Sure enough, across Alba, this place comes up, Charlie Brown's something, like Cartografia or something. And so I'm like, great, hopefully Cartografia means cardboard store. I don't know. I guess you can't just like go to a shop, like there's no like Walmart, right? Like we could go to Walmart and get a cardboard tube. That doesn't exist in this part of Italy, at least. And so I venture off towards this cartografia. Eventually, about 15 minutes or so, I get there and I walk in, and sure enough, it's a paper store, like stationery and pens and all of the things. First thing I do, I take a lap. I don't see any cardboard tubes. Not a great sign. I go right up to the counter and I say, parle inglese? And the guy goes, nope. And I go, okay. I'm going to try and communicate before I jump to Google Translate. And I go, I need a tube. And he's like, And I'm like, cardboard, like paper, but hard, a tube. And he's like, And so then I get my phone out and I type, I need a cardboard tube. And he still kind of doesn't get it. And I'm like, a tube. And he goes, oh, tubo. And I go, tubo. And so he comes out from around the desk and he goes over and he grabs tubo. This is a plastic tube for transporting paper. Perfect. Yes, tubo. I almost laughed. It was like comedic relief after, 3 minutes of struggling to mime out what a tube is. But yes, tubo. So I bought tubo. So excited because this plan is coming to fruition. And then I came back here with my spoils, and I had a nice dinner down at the restaurant here at the end of the way. American food, like burgers and stuff, but it was like pretty good. I mean, hopefully the only burger I have in Italy, but it was a good one. Had a great glass of wine and got some planning and some work done. And yeah, I'm just excited. Tomorrow I'll have another day in Alba, hoping to record that interview with Enrico. Also maybe gonna ask Bruno if he would sit down and just talk about the history of the Enoteca and of course the Roman art. And then I'm off to find Dona. The problem is I don't know where she is because I pinned the location of her shop because it's like so small, it's not on the map. And I lost the pin on my map. So I need to just wander around, try and find, I know it's more on the north side of town. So I have that going for me. But yeah, other than that, had a great day. Success, potential interview, tubo, ready to buy some art, ready to learn about wine, and ready to have another full day in the medieval city of Alba. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.